Dante, thanks for joining the live. Please like the live. Let's push this. It's gonna be a debate. I think it's very important that we debate about this topic. Because we have found ourselves in a world that we don't quite understand. So it's up to us to decide whether we feel like the experience that we're having is a positive or a negative experience. Is it? So I'm gonna be having a conversation with Tino. We first had this conversation on Discord a few days back, and yeah, I've decided that no, it will be best if we actually debate live on YouTube. So today, when I was on Discord, I found him online, and I was like, "Yo, let's do this, bro! Like, this is perfect. Like, this is actually the perfect time to do this." So, Tino, if you want to introduce yourself, you can introduce yourself, bro. And yeah,
Yeah, hi. I'm Tino. I'm Tino in the Discord as well. And yeah, I'll say join the Discord. Usually there if you want to have conversations. But I just the algorithm showed me Benedictine's videos, and I was like, at the end of the day, when things are true, they just stick with you, and you're more interested. And what he was saying was true. Um, and what really interested me was the fact that they kind of crossed with ideas that I'd already came across and were basically already involved in, like a type of school of work that I was already involved in. And, under my perception, this person that had nothing to do with it was saying the same ideas, obviously speaking from life experience as well as knowledge, from probably things you might have read or seen or whatever. So yeah, it was very interesting, and like it's like an antenna. I think I've said that before. Like when truth comes up, it's like a signal, and people who have it, they attract people. If you go into a Discord, you'll get that sense of people being attracted and having these conversations that they don't have on a regular basis. But yeah, so yeah, we first had the discussion about you know what the hell realm is. To call it a hell realm by nature is, like I think you described it specifically as it being sadistic. And I said, yeah, there are things bad about it, but you can't really call it sadistic or a hell realm, and that can really impede your understanding of it. And like yeah, I thought about that as soon as the conversation was over. And yeah, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes now.
all right. So, Tino, what I think is that you you trust the universe, right? Like you trust that this place that we found ourselves in was actually created for us to thrive. It's not possible in your worldview that we were put here for a bad reason, or we might be in a lush farm. Are you familiar with the concept of like a lush farm?
Yeah, yeah. I looked up that word. I only heard it first from you, but that concept that our suffering is basically food for higher beings is it's in other like traditions and schools and thoughts as well. So it was already common to me, but yeah, I heard it first from you, and yeah, I'm familiar with that idea.
So I think um, the difference between your worldview and my worldview is that now, actually, even though this feels bad, even though sometimes this can feel wrong, we don't have uh, like a deeper understanding of what this really is. So sometimes we can actually feel like the things that are happening are not happening for us, or they're not happening for a good reason because of our own uh, limited perception on like everything that's going on. So what I'm saying is that no, actually we are the ones that decide as conscious beings, because we are the ones who are experiencing life here. So we are the ones that actually decide whether this is good or bad, right? Just like if you find yourself like in a place, right, and you're not enjoying your experience, you are the one who decides whether the experience that you're having is positive or not. And what I'm saying is that most people actually feel like this is a hell realm. Even people who are religious, people who are religious are like the most positive people or like on earth. but they feel like this is some kind of a hell realm. They might not look at it the way that I like, exactly the way that I look at it, but they still feel like something is not right. They still feel like this world is full of suffering. So what I'm saying is that, you know, it's more logical to think that what is happening to us as conscious beings in a world that we found ourselves in, that we didn't even consent to being in, is actually not a good thing. So that is why I consider this a whole.
I see your point. And like it raises key issues for me in where I come to disagree with you. And just to preface it again, I'm in no way saying this is a good place or there's things to be enjoyed, but
Mm,
you're coming at it from a very subjective perspective, and then saying because we as humans have the ability to make subjective judgments, those
mm,
judgments necessarily, can be true. So, at the
mm,
end of the day, what is actually, from my perspective, what is what is good for you. What is what is bad for you.
mm,
You said, many people on this earth will still say, "Oh, my life is good." They'll be lying to you, but even a small amount of people say, "Oh, my life is good," and they haven't really suffered anything. Their parents died when they were old, and their parents were old as well. Maybe in their 50s or something. They didn't have anything, any accidents or any healthcare issues, and they would say, okay, life was generally pleasurable for me. But because you don't have that subjective experience, you're not going to make the same subjective judgment as them. But then, if we want to take it away from subjective judgments, which is where I'm fundamentally coming from, I'm saying that what is happening here is necessary. Therefore,
mm,
it can't be good or bad. It can just be necessary. And what is necessary can be bad or good for you, bad or good for another person. But, like kind of like the fundamental thing is that it is happening. And to put a subjective judgment on it is just something you can't do and not true. And then the danger of that is that you're trying to constrain this idea of this realm, take away health from it. You're trying to constrain the idea of this realm into this kind of thing that is just your subjective understanding of it. And the fact is you can actually get outside of your objective understanding of it, because there are people who would go through life without any issues, and without any problems, or without even thinking that this place is a hell realm. So you just have to realize that your view is subjective. That's what I'm trying to say.
okay. So here's the problem with that. Um, let me use this simple example. In South Africa, we went through a period called apartheid, when black people were not, didn't have rights, right? I'm sure there were a lot of white people who felt like the apartheid government was actually good, and there were black people who felt like the apartheid government was not good. So if we only look at how we are being treated by the system, right? Like if things are going well for me, it means that the system is good. If things are not going well for me, it means that the system is bad. Is bad. That will actually, like, I would not be able to see things as they really are, just because I'm only looking at my own subjective experience. So what I'm looking at is not just my subjective experience. I'm also looking at the world itself, right? Like what is actually going on in the world. There are people who are doing very well. That is a fact. There are people who are really enjoying their lives. That is a fact. But that doesn't mean that what is happening, like when you look at everything that is happening, is actually good just because some people are actually enjoying themselves. In fact, what makes this the perfect hell is that some people are actually enjoying themselves, so they'll say, no, it's not a hell room because I'm doing good. It's like if there's corruption, and some people are benefiting from that corruption, they will not have a problem. But that doesn't mean that there's no corruption. It just means that they are benefiting from the corruption. You see, when you look at the way that the world works, you realize that most people who are actually not really that good, they actually tend to do well compared to people who are good. Like the kindest people are usually the people who suffer the most, and the people who are selfish, the people who only care about themselves, these are the people who actually thrive in this realm. So, looking at all of that, I've concluded that we are in a hell realm.
Mm.
The other thing that you said is that this is necessary. I would like you to, elaborate more on that, but you can also, you know, uh, respond to what I've just said.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to tie the threads together. It's like if the system is benefiting someone, like let's say the system is definitely benefiting the whites of apartheid South Africa, then they're not going to want to change it because their human nature, which is how they've been created, is to not change things that are good for them, but instead to keep on going, into with those good things and quote unquote, you know, businesses will keep on doing the good things that are making them money. Anyone who's smart and started, anything will keep on doing what at first was making them money until it doesn't, then they change it. You
Mm,
can't, because the system is good for them, but you look at the wider system and say, okay, it's bad for the rest of South Africans and stuff. You can't still take away their reality. Their reality is that at this level of power, if we maintain this power, things will be good for us. And that's a real feeling that they feel. It's an emotion. That's why, they defended the apartheid system against the world basically until they couldn't. So then we come on to this idea of necessity, and we can link that back to the apartheid system.
mm,
It's necessary that human beings who show strength and power and who are able to do that will basically they will they will cause suffering to other human beings in order to maintain that strength, power, and the joy that strength and power, basically brings them. The Romans had an old saying. It was called "Vae Victis." It means "woe to the vanquished." It means if you're defeated, the stronger they can do anything they want to you, and the reason they can do anything they want to you is because simply the universe has made a law that stronger things can, do what they want. So if you're looking at that from an objective perspective, right, you can
mm,
say that the universe is actually constructed in this way that stronger things gain pleasure from, dominating other things. And if you want to say, oh, that's so bad, then at the end of the day, you're saying it's bad because I'm not a stronger thing gaining pleasure from, making other things suffer. But those stronger things have a reality where they're gaining pleasure from doing whatever, and it doesn't just mean human beings. I mean, you can look at the universe. When a bigger planet smashes into a smaller planet, that stronger thing is then dominating the smaller thing. So it's kind of
mm.
law of the universe that you have to accept and not call it a hell realm, or not say, things should be another way or should it be made another way, because in that way you're not really understanding, the reality of it in that way. Things are made this way, and because they're necessarily good. They're the way things should be. Nothing isn't how it should be. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, no, that's a brilliant take, and I fully understand it. And I think I've made a video where I actually say the exact same thing that you're saying. But I want to show you something. Have you realized that most of the things that we're against as a collective, we are we are not against them when these things are working in our favors. For an example, if you are against corruption, if corruption is working in your favor, you're not against it, right? Like if you are benefiting, like if in the beginning you were poor and there's corruption in your country, and then you do of course complain and say, corruption is bad, corruption is bad. And then if things change and you find yourself in on the good side, then even if you would say that corruption is bad, but you won't necessarily want things to change. So I think that's what you were saying. But that doesn't mean that there's no truth in that. It doesn't mean that that actually uh it only has to do with how you are experiencing life, right? If things if a system is good for you, it means that it's good. If the system is bad for you, it means that it's bad. So it's all subjective. There's an honest way to look at things, right? Like even the people who, some people who are not benefiting from the apartheid, I mean, who are benefiting from the apartheid government, but who are very intellectually honest, they knew that it was a bad system, right? Like it didn't only have to do with whether they are benefiting or not. Like they had to let go of their ego and just look at things as honestly as possible. And they realized that no, but this is bad. So they fought against the apartheid government, not because, because the white people who fought against the apartheid government, not because they would benefit when they fight against the apartheid government, but because of their intellectual honesty. So when we look at the way that the world works as honestly as possible, we'll see that there's something fundamentally wrong with it, right? You said that the strong will always prey on the weak, and that's how it works naturally, and that's true. But that doesn't mean that that is good. Let me give you this example. If,
I
because
feel
you
like
said
this
this
is
is necessary.
your Christian perspective coming through.
Okay, okay, yeah, we'll get to that. But let me say this first. So let's say someone creates a simulation where they put people without their consent and they make it necessary that uh, the baddest motherfucker in that simulation is the one that gets to enjoy. Would you say that that is good because, well, that is what's necessary in the for the simulation to work, because the creator of that simulation wanted things to be that way?
Yes,
So
I
you
would
can,
definitely. Yeah, yes.
you say
I
it's
don't,
good.
and yeah, and I guess where we go down is why would you say it's bad that someone who created something to work in a definite way,
Hmm.
just
I would
because it
say,
doesn't work in the way that you want, at the end of the day, let's bring it back down. Just because it's not working in the way that's favorable to you means it's
not
necessarily
quite.
bad. Like for example,
Hmm.
when we see a lion, chase or a cheetah, whatever, chase down a gazelle, and
Hmm.
completely, dominates it in the way that a lion or cheetah was completely built, and with all the weaknesses that a gazelle has compared to, a lion or cheetah.
Hmm.
There's two ways to look at it. You can be like, oh no, oh sad, he's getting eaten alive, blah blah blah, or you can be
Hmm.
like, well, this is actually, although this is terrible, quote unquote, this is actually perfect. This is the exact way things were meant to be on this planet. And although I'm looking at this and saying it's terrible, things are bad,
Hmm.
there was a design, or there's a reason things are like this, and I'm seeing this, in this particular way. And at the end of the day, it's the kind of for me to get to a sense of insignificance, that I might be trying to say this is a hell realm, or if I'm a Christian, I'm trying to say this is positive. Or I'm X, Y, and Z, I'm trying to say X, Y, and Z. But if I just look out onto nature, I see nature is actually indifferent. It's built in a way that is just, clear. Powerful things say destroy weaker things on almost every aspect and every level,
Hmm.
beyond this realm and in this realm. So like when you notice that that's a feature of the hell realm, then to call it a hell realm, it's not really a hell realm, it's just the realm it is, you know. But yeah, yeah.
Okay. You gave this perfect example of a prayer and a predator. But what we must understand is that they were put in that situation where there is an animal that is weak and there's an animal that is strong. It's not necessarily, it wasn't their will, right? Remember, they didn't consent to be in that game. So it actually makes sense to look at them as victims, like the same way that you look at a person maybe who was born uh, in a country where people like him or her, are being oppressed. Like they
Mm.
didn't consent to be in that situation. So yes, you can say that that is a future, like that the ones who are strong, prey on the weak in that country. But also understand that that person is a victim. So are you saying that someone being tortured and they're a victim, or someone playing a game that they didn't consent to playing, but where they are suffering and they don't necessarily know a way out. Like that cannot be good or bad.
Yes, I think necessarily it can't be. And, just to back up this point, I think Jesus said, like, Lord, forgive them because they know not what they're doing. In this life, in this realm, when someone does good, most of the time they don't know they're doing good. When someone does bad, most of the time they don't know they're doing bad. We like to project this idea that people think or know what they're doing will be good or bad in the future. People are just doing things, and those things can be good or bad for you. There are people who have ended up in unfortunate situations and ended up in some prison somewhere, innocent, but they're being tortured as if they're a criminal. Just look what happened in Syria, all those people that were freed. Those people that were torturing them, they thought it was good. They thought, they were doing it. They didn't care, until people with stronger power came and said, this isn't happening. We're not having this. This isn't our morality. You can then put your idea that these people were intellectually superior, they were more moral because they put an end to this prison. But at the end of the day, the root reason is because a group with stronger power overtook another group and imposed the ideas that they wanted. That's it. And, you can then say, and then someone who looked at that would say, "Oh, that's liberation. That's great. That's this. That's that." But no, it's just the same law of power that meant that people who had to suffer in those prisons was the same law of power that meant that those people were free in those prisons because they actually became more powerful than the oppressors. It's constantly changing, and I feel you're gonna make yourself go crazy if you're constantly, thinking, "Oh, okay, this is definitely a hell realm. This is definitely a hell realm," because you're gonna have moments in your life where it's not a hell realm and you get like sidetracked with it, or it's a good realm, or you get things where you're like, oh, you know like your knowledge is increasing and you're happy with that, and it's not so much a hell realm. But if you're stuck with just looking outside, and then trying to judge what's outside, then I don't feel it gets you anywhere. I think looking inside is better, because again, I feel like, just to finish off this point, psychologically, I think looking outside and judging it is what humans just do anyway. Looking inside and saying, okay, it's a hell realm, but is there any hell within me? You know, is more important than caring about the hell realm outside. Because at the end of the day, it's an illusion. It's an illusion, even if it is a hell realm. But I don't think you can say it's a hell realm. But still, while you're making that judgment of it outside, you might not be making the more important internal judgment of, is it a hell realm within me? Am I a hell realm? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah.
So what I've realized about humans in general is that, yeah, when we are making mistakes, it actually takes us time for us to realize that we're making mistakes, right? When we were like being the way nature intended for things, like and nature made us to be, right? Like for an example, if nature made it easy for me to um you know control other people, and I keep on doing that, and I keep on doing that, and I keep on doing it, and I keep on doing that, um unless maybe at some point nature humbles me and actually make me see reality for what it is, make me see the damage that I'm causing, I might feel like what I'm doing is actually right, because I'm only looking at life from my own perspective. I'm not looking at life from the perspective of those who are suffering. But when life gives me a reality check and it makes me see things from both perspectives, that's when I'm able to say that, huh, but I was causing a lot of damage here. You see? So what I'm saying is that sometimes nature can make us blind, that we actually oppress people without realizing that we're oppressing people, or without realizing that that might actually be bad. And then after some time, as we grow and become more conscious, we realize that no, that was bad. You see?
Mm.
So what I'm arguing is that just because in someone's subjective reality what's happening might not be bad, even if they are causing suffering, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is what is true. It could mean that they are operating at a very low level of consciousness, so they are not able to see that what they are doing is wrong until they actually grow, until life humbles them and makes them see things as they really are. So
Mm,
yes, the law of power is real in this realm. That is 100% true. But we cannot say that people being oppressed is a good thing, even if they didn't consent to that. But let me ask you this question this way. I'm a very big fan of MMA. Um, I love seeing two people fighting in the octagon. Do you think that if someone had the power to put two people in the octagon, it doesn't matter if these people want to fight or not, put them in the octagon and make them fight, like that will still be good? And I believe that your answer will be yes. But I want you to um, elaborate more on that, looking at this context.
mm. Yeah, so I think I'd say yes, it'll be good, because
Mhm.
let I can give two examples here. I'll give one example. Let's say you're a Roman and you didn't
Mhm.
know about any morality of this current morality. You didn't know it was okay. You didn't know it was bad to capture people in war, bring them back to your city, and make them fight for your entertainment. And
Mhm.
you went to the Colosseum. The whole city was cheering. Before, the city was terrible, but everyone's out today. Everyone's happy. The emperor's there, the soldiers are there. There's fanfare, there's food, things like this. When I studied this back in school, like it was a day out. It was a proper day. I was like going to an amusement park or anything like this. Exact same thing of going to a stadium, but instead you're seeing people forced to kill each other. And if you lived
Mhm.
your whole life that way, by the time you got to 80, nature would never give you any idea that those things were bad. You would never, when you got to 80, go back to Colosseum and say, "Oh, people, don't go, don't go, don't go," blah blah blah, because
Mhm.
and then would you then, when you, let's say you got to, because I feel like you're having this idea that you have to have this concept because in the future you're going to be judged. Either your soul might be judged for not thinking this whole
No.
thing's bad for everyone. But then just to finish off again, say you're a
Mhm.
slave owner from 1590 to 1650. In that period, slavery was never thought of as a bad thing. It was justified in all the bullshit science. It was justified in all the media that they had. And let's say,
No.
you died in 1650. Throughout your life, you used slaves to build up your wealth. You sent your children to private schools, the best private schools in America. This is how it happened. You made sure that your whole family was okay, and you raised them as a good Christian slave owning family. If your slaves messed around, you beat them because you were doing them a favor by making them your slaves, basically, because they were animals. This was your morality. And then you'd get to heaven, because I'm thinking again, like, you have this idea that if you don't think it's a hell realm completely, like you're lacking, your understanding is lacking. But let's say you're judged for your understanding of this place. Let's say that slave owner gets to this hell realm, or let's say who is that other example I used? The other example gets to be judged for what they had. I mean, the person who went to the Colosseum and loved it gets to be judged. Would it be fair that they would be judged for something that at the end of the day there was no way they could ever have the idea that it was wrong? And that's how
Yeah.
human history is. There are many people who have done the most heinous things, and because there was no idea existing in the human mind or the human psyche or planet Earth itself that this was wrong, when they left this earth, they never had the thought that what they did was wrong. Do you know what I mean? They live in peace. Do you know what I mean? It's only
Mhm.
us now. We kind of make these silly value judgments that, oh, back in the past this was bad, this was sadistic, the universe was a hell realm, blah 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 blah. But I feel the right way to understand things, and this is my opinion, is to just be indifferent and understand it's necessary that people suffer. Because at the end of the day, when it comes my time to suffer, I don't want to be at first thinking this is a hell realm. I want to think at the end of the day, Tino, this is necessary. Go through it. And, at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? You die. So this is your suffering. Whatever happens, emotional, physical, go through it. That's what I want to relate to my existence in this realm. I don't want when suffering happens to me, I'm like, oh, this is sadistic, blah blah blah. But I don't know if that's your perspective, but yeah, I hope
Hmm.
that was a point.
No, I can see how that can help you cope. Um, but to respond to what you were saying earlier, I don't feel like if someone does something bad without realizing that what they're doing is bad, they should actually be judged, right? But even if they do know that what they're doing is bad, I don't really believe that people should be judged. What I'm actually saying is that we were put in a situation so that we will be tortured, or that so that we will torture each other, right? So that some people will be powerful and then torture those who are weak, and some people will be um so some people will suffer more than other people. And that's why I say that this is a hell realm. I'm not saying that the players in this realm are bad or should be judged. I'm saying the whole thing is wrong. It's like if we were in the Christian vision of hell and demons were torturing. I wouldn't say the demons are bad. They were programmed to do that. They are not. They would not be conscious enough to realize that what they're doing might be causing harm. So I
Okay, but
wouldn't blame them. I
who
would
is
end
it
up being.
wrong for? Who is it wrong for?
Is it what?
Who is it wrong for?
um it is wrong for everyone. It's wrong for the
Why are
one
we
who's.
important? Why is
Sorry.
what we why are we important?
Because we are sentient, we are self-aware. Remember, we are not
What if I
robots.
told you imagine it was a computer program, and what if I told you sentience was just a mistake in one line in the computer program and it had your sentience had no importance or no relevance whatsoever? Because if you think you have sentience and you think other things aren't sentient, in
Mm,
in my opinion, an ant, if an ant was sentient and for some reason it could speak, it might just say, "Oh, these human beings are not sentient." Look at the cities they make, blah 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 blah. So this idea of sentience that you might be holding to this high level, in my opinion, is nothing but just either an accidental property of existence, or like a legacy property, or it has no significance whatsoever other than to you, your own consciousness. So, what I'm saying is that to kind of free your own sentience, to free your consciousness, in my opinion, with my consciousness, I'm not too concerned with saying things are bad on this planet whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I don't matter. My sentence and my opinion doesn't matter, whatever I want to call it. And it doesn't matter because all throughout history, people have done different things and called it different things. And some people have done that to the end of the world, and some people have done that to annoy their neighbors or whatever. It doesn't, it's all arbitrary in my opinion.
mm, the difference I think between you and me now is that you don't value your awareness or your consciousness the same way that I value my awareness and consciousness, or value my judgment.
I feel you've attached your awareness to the suffering of the world. I've attached my awareness to my own suffering. And, in exploring my own suffering, and this is just my opinion, like I've said, I do not know you. Don't think I'm trying to, make
No,
any
no,
judgment. But yeah,
don't worry about it.
in exploring my own suffering, I found, oh, wait, this actually might not be a hell realm. That's personal to me, and that's my exploration. I feel the
Mm,
reason why we do have a difference is because you have a significant attachment to what's happening outside. That's why before I was asking if you were a vegan and stuff, because oftentimes, it comes with that empathy of what's happening to animals, outside. I've considered the vegan argument completely. I think one of the best logical arguments is that, if a human had, mental problems and the animal had mental problems, would you kill the human? And obviously not. You wouldn't kill a human with mental problems, but you would kill a cow just because a cow doesn't have the same intelligence as a human. I think it's called name the trait argument. So I've explored the veganism arguments, but I think still veganism comes from a root of looking out to the suffering of animals and then basically caring about it, thinking that your awareness of their suffering means that you have to make a subjective judgment on it. And at the end of the day, me even saying that sentence is a waste of time. So I feel those thoughts are a waste of time. You can do it, and at the end of the day, like in my opinion, these things, these looking into yourself only comes when it's time, and the universe says, look into yourself. I feel that's what makes someone chosen or awakened, to look into themselves rather than to see the whole universe as like a bad thing. I think that's almost because it's so obvious, when you do come to that realization, like you should then look inside yourself and ask yourself, am I a hell realm? And that's a more interesting question than is this all not a hell realm? I hope that was clear. Yeah, went on for long.
Yeah, it was clear. Um, because okay, the difference is you say that you're looking at your experience more. You're looking at your subjective experience more than just looking at the world. And I'm looking at the world. So I think if you are only looking at your own subjective experience, yes, you can say, okay, in my subjective experience, this is not a hell room, and or I choose to not look at it as a hell room. Like you do have the right to say that. But if you decide that, you know what, I want to investigate reality, I want to look at the world and make a conclusion about it. So I'm going to try to look at everything that is going on in this world and then make a conclusion about what is actually going on in this world. That might not make your life easy, right? It might actually make your life hard, but you you have a better chance of figuring out what makes the like more sense to believe about the world than a person who just look at it from their own subjective perspective. You see?
Mm. So are you
So if
saying, yeah,
if I'm looking at the suffering of animals and I'm like, okay, I do understand that some of these animals do get to enjoy their lives, some of these animals don't enjoy their lives. But my problem is that as conscious beings, all of us, we we don't actually agree with the way that nature works. It's just that we are indifferent because we are not affected, right? So we're not conscious enough to see the reality of the world because we're not affected. If we were affected, we would actually see the reality of the world and we will conclude that that is bad. So if we're only choosing to look at our own subjective experience, if I'm choosing to look at, if I was, still a meat eater, I would look at the fact that yeah, I'm benefiting. Like the meat is actually nice, it's cheap and all that. Yeah, of course I'm benefiting, right? But if I were to look at the reality of the animals that are being unalived and that never get to even live their lives because we keep them, we incubate them, which we just breed them just to eat them. They
yeah,
don't get to,
it's
like
not
if I
nice.
had to look at the reality from like from their perspective, I would actually be able to see that, actually, but this is messed up, right? So if I had to look at both perspectives, it will actually make sense to say that's messed up because now I'm looking at my perspective and their perspective.
Okay, okay. So let's say I have a chicken burger. I'm about to bite into it, and then you come behind me. You put your hand on my shoulder, and you say, "Let me show you where that chicken burger comes from." Right? We go
Mm.
through the whole system. I think the male chicks, because they're useless, I think they just throw them in a grinder. They put them in these battery farms, blah blah blah. And then we come back, and then we sit down, and then you say to me, "Okay, are you still going to eat that chicken burger?" Right in front of you, I'm going to take the bite of that chicken burger. Okay. And the reason I'm going to still eat the chicken burger is because at the end of the day, as a human being, I get pleasure from things. I still have to live the life of a human being, a human animal. I'm not gonna. What I'm trying to say is, I shouldn't deny that nature. I should try to understand that nature, and that is best understood within me. And it's in my nature at this point in time to take pleasure from eating meat products, even though I know that those animals were, mistreated. The same way it might be in someone's pleasure in the 1840s, when it's clear that this slavery thing's bad. They might be like, okay, I know slavery is bad, but I'm going to treat my slaves a little bit better because I know there's this movement to treat them a little bit better. I'm a good person, blah blah blah. It's just about what it's about the power that you have, basically, and knowing that power that you have. And I feel like you feel like once you being aware is being aware of all the suffering, all the bad things that happen in the world, and then making a judgment. Not really. Being aware is being aware of yourself. And at the end of the day, you don't have any control whether nature wants to show you suffering to what extent or not. But you do have control over yourself. That's why the answer can only be found, from yourself. But once you're trying to look out there onto something you already know is an illusion, thinking that just to you're created here to, like, suffer, and that's a bad thing because you're suffering, then I don't know for you, but I feel like that just stops you from getting into that place of looking within yourself and just understanding what you are instead of trying to understand what it is, because you can never know what it is, but you can always have a better idea of what you are, basically.
Yeah, we can take it to that level, right? Because I think actually to even be able to take it to that level where we actually get to understand what we are, we have to be as intellectually honest as possible. Um, my problem with the scenario that you describe now, like, oh, if I told you why you'll be causing suffering if you, like, you'll be contributing to suffering if you ate a burger, is that you will eat it only because you can, not because you don't think that it is true that the animals would have had to suffer, right? Not, and I wouldn't judge you and say you're a bad person. Like, I don't even do that. I don't even judge anyone, to be honest with you. In fact, I keep on telling people that there are no good or bad people. We're just product of our genes, circumstances, and traditions. But that doesn't mean that there ain't people who are um so ignorant that they cause suffering without even realizing that they're causing suffering, or we just don't care if they're causing suffering or not, right? So I don't think seeing reality for what it is will actually stop your progress. Like, when you're trying to realize what you are, I actually think that it will accelerate your progress because you are not ignorant. You are actually
Mm.
choosing to see truth,
But then
right? You're choosing to
yeah,
uh-huh.
I see where your conclusion's coming from, right? But then you're you're missing the debate that we're having, which is the reality of it sadistic hell realm, or the reality of it everything is necessary and this is, the way it's meant to be, and this is this is good, not because it's good because this is where it's programmed and it's working the way it's intended to, in all the
Okay.
multiple infinite layers of the realms, and all the, all the intelligence that went into it, all the intelligence that didn't go into it. At the end of the day, because at this very moment things are existing in the way that they are, it is good because it's meant to be that way. If an asteroid came and destroyed Earth, it would be good because that asteroid traveled how far, went through how many different things to come here mathematically, perfectly, to destroy the planet at this point in time. That's the, the concept I'm trying to get through. And it's like, that's where we disagree on the idea, is that, you know, is it necessary, or is it like it has a, I don't even really understand. I don't really understand, the point you're trying to make necessarily, because I agree that there's suffering. I agree that you can be aware of all the world's suffering, but I don't agree that that necessarily means that because it has suffering for human beings on our tiny little section of the universe, that we can make the judgment that it is suffering. I don't think we can make any judgment on what the realm is. We can only say, what we are. And from our perspective, I feel the highest intellectual honesty is saying that it is necessary. I feel you saying that it's a hell realm or putting any adjective to it is dishonest, because you're trying to describe something that you can't describe. Being
No,
honest is saying that it's necessary. It just is. Why is there suffering? Because there is suffering, for us. That's it.
no, I agree with you that it's necessary. Like, it's 100% necessary. I even say to people that suffering is not a bug. Suffering is a future, right? Like, we don't go through the messed up things that we go through because some something that wasn't supposed to happen has happened. So now, because of that, we are going through what we're going through. No, it's actually necessary. All of it is necessary. So that's not my argument. My argument is that just because something is necessary doesn't actually mean that it is good, right? Just because something was made to be necessary, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is actually good. And because we, as conscious beings, we do have the ability
But
to actually make a judgment, because every
mm,
conscious being can do
but
that.
is it an objective judgment you can make, or is it always going to be a subjective human judgment that you can make? Because I don't believe, because yeah, that's the question. Like, do you feel like your judgments are in any way objective?
Yes, I think my judgments are objective because, like I said,
Use
I
that.
I I, I look at everything, right? I don't just look at things from my perspective, because the difference between me and you is that you actually do look at things from your own subjective, perspective, and say this is good for me. So because it's good for me, I would say that this is good. So I don't look at only that. I look at other people's experiences. I look at my experiences. I listen to what other people say.
Mm.
And
Okay. Like, let
and
me give you an example, if I may. Let's say you see someone crossing the street, right? Yeah, and
mm,
then they didn't look both ways, and instantly a truck comes and smashes them. Everyone's
mm,
like, "Whoa, what happened? What happened?" People are crying. Their family members come out, and then you see this man in a lab coat with a clipboard come out, and he's smiling, and you say to him, "Why are you smiling?" And he's like, "Oh, I just knew that if this truck came at this exact location and this girl came at this exact time and it hit her at that exact speed at that exact moment, that would flatten her, and it worked. It was perfect. It went through." And then you'll be like, but she suffered. She was hurt. And yeah, of course she's hurt. She's a human being. Like, human beings suffer when they got hit. But look, the
mm,
truck came at, blah blah blah. It's their different perspective. And at the end of the day, they're both subjective perspectives. I feel what's closer to the objective truth is that human beings, they exist on one order of existence, right? And that order of existence necessarily means that life on this planet means that they have to suffer. That doesn't mean the whole universe or the whole thing is suffering. It just means that for us there is suffering to it. But if you want to understand the whole thing, don't put any labels out there. Try and label yourself within yourself and see, am I this? Is there hell within me? What I'm trying to say is that a lot of people look out onto, like, politicians, for example, and say, oh, he's a liar, he's a cheat, he's whatever. But look into your life, the times that you've lied, the times that you've cheated, the times you've done X, Y, and Z, and then you wouldn't be surprised that the people that have been elected are the same, things, because it's all just kind of, projection in a way to try and describe anything that's outside of yourself, because you don't really understand anything outside of yourself at all. And I feel that that's intellectual honesty. And I asked you, do you think that your opinions are objective or subjective? And you said that objective, and I don't think you can prove your opinions are objective. There is suffering. I'm not denying that there is suffering, but
mm,
that's it. There is suffering. That's it. There is food. There is sex. There is happiness for some people. There is also joy. There's also joy. Some people say, "Oh, I had so much joy." Are you going to say that they're being intellectually dishonest because they didn't look at, the people across the street that weren't having joy? No, they had joy. They don't care about the people across the street, and that's the way it was intended. And to deny that reality and say, "Oh, it's hellish because there's so much ignorance and this is happening for these people and these people aren't being blah 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 blah." You get stuck at that point, and that's the point I keep trying to reiterate. That's why I wonder, if we'll ever disagree, because it's fundamentally, can human beings make objective or only subjective judgments on the world around them? I think they
mm.
can only make subjective judgments. But you said yourself that your judgment is objective, and I'm not gonna, spend the whole time saying that your your judgment isn't objective because that's what you believe.
Mm, here's the thing, right? There are people, and like growing up, I used to see that a lot. There are people who only defend what benefits them. Like they don't care about the truth at all. They like if they're in a situation where they benefit. Let me give you this simple example. I know people who will defend the person who have money just because they know they can benefit from that person, not because they think the person is right. To them, it's not about right or wrong. It's about what they can benefit, right? I remember I had it when I really like when I realized this, like for the first time, I was having a debate with someone about this battle rapper. Um, I mean this battle actually. So it was DNA versus disaster. So there's this line that he said, they say DNA fell off, but now I'm back. Thank you, bitch. So the guy, what he was saying was that no, DNA said, um, I'm back to fake you, bitch. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. But the guy was loved, right? He was loved. So we went and watched the battle, and he DNA clearly said, they say DNA fell off, but now I'm back. Thank you, bitch. But everyone was on his side. I was like, what the fuck? So just because they love this guy, they're gonna pretend as if I'm wrong just because like they were benefiting a lot. He had a lot of money. He would take people out. So some people are not intellectually honest. We cannot just say, oh, just because in in their subjective experience, that is what he's saying. Like, no, they're just not intellectually honest. So don't you agree that there are some people who are more honest than other people? There are people who are less selfish than other people, meaning that they are very capable of seeing things more objectively than the people who are selfish or who are not honest. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that because you're basically you have an offense to human nature, right? And at the end of the
Mm,
day, what is good, like I'm trying to say, is what is good for you. So let's say there's someone who like you said, like they lie, they cheat, they steal, but they have money. They have power in this world. This is how this world actually works. They have power. They have respect because they're the best liar. They have the respect because they're the best cheater. They have the
mm.
respect because they have the best weapons or whatever. That's the law in this world, right? And at the end of the day, because that offends me as well. It shouldn't be that way. Our politicians shouldn't be the best liars, the best cheaters, the best whatever, but they are for some reason in almost every single country. It offends me. But then I realize that this is the way it was meant to be necessarily. And for example,
Mm,
if I think that it's bad,
mm,
I should thank those people and I should thank God for making those people so perfectly, quote unquote, bad, because it can only just compare to what I think or what my understanding of the world. And those people, they'll be ignorant forever. And you can say ignorance is a bad thing, but ignorance is also bliss. And nature, I feel, will happily make billions, tens of millions of ignorant people just to fulfill, the purpose of evolution to get different humans on this planet. But we, as people who consider ourselves, conscious, we need those ignorant people, and in a way, we should love them because they're perfect, because they don't know either what they're doing is good or bad. They're just existing, and they exist in a way for us. They exist for us to understand. So that's what I'm trying to say, that the hell realm is not always a hell realm, because the hellish aspects, and once you understand them, which a lot of the times is other people who are the hellish aspects, you know, you can get pleasure from that, but that's something you have to, you kind of have to just, do in your own situation, blah blah blah. But
So
yeah, there
do
are
you
people who are ignorant, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's bad or whatever. It's good.
now do you agree that there are people who see things more objectively than others? Because that was the argument that I was trying to make. That there are some people who are more conscious, who are more intellectually
Yeah, but
honest.
not in your version of objectively,
Or what do you mean not in my version?
because you think calling it sadistic is seeing it more objectively than others. But I feel someone who calls it sadistic, respectfully, is in the same delusion as a Christian who would call it joyful. They're still in
Mm.
that idea that they think they can declare something on it. And I say respectfully because I don't know how you actually live your life or what you actually think or blah blah blah. But I still think that there are people who do see it more objectively, and I think calling it sadistic is closer to those people who see it more objectively. But I don't think that's subjective. Calling it sadistic is objective. I think objective is necessary. Things that are necessary are objective. They need to happen. And you can't do anything for something that needs to happen. Like the same way that we know objectively we'll die. That needs to happen. It's necessary. A lot of people want to say it's bad that we die. In a lot of cultures, it's good when someone dies. That's subjective. That's what you're talking about. That's, you know, calling it, oh, even though that it's made this way, at a higher level, it's sadistic, but that's still a subjective, you know, argument. Because for some people, like, the journey towards death is like a good thing. Death is celebrated. Just because they suffered throughout their life doesn't mean that their death wouldn't be celebrated, in some cultures and things like that. So, and people, at the end of the day, most people who meet, they'll try and wrap it up in a nice little bow, and then you pat them on the head and you say, okay, it's nice that you can wrap life up in that nice little bow. You don't really want to convince them out of it. You don't want to scare them out of it. So, yeah, but
But I think you're contradicting yourself a little, because if you truly you agree that we are some people are more conscious than others, meaning that they can see things more objectively than others, then we cannot say that those who are not seeing things more objectively are also seeing things more realistic, because that's the argument. I'm saying that there are people who see things more objectively. So just because there are some people who are saying this is not a hell realm, maybe because they're very ignorant, or let me not even use that example, but let's say someone does something that causes suffering, but they don't see that what they're doing is causing suffering, because they don't see things more objectively, but someone else says that what they're doing is causing suffering because they see things more objectively. Like that one, I mean, the one who's able to see things more objectively is more truthful. Now we might argue if that is important, right, or not, because I remember you were saying that, just because you take honesty as something important doesn't always mean that it is, right. It doesn't always mean that that is the best thing.
mm,
But the argument is that when you see things more objectively, what is more true, not whether it's good or bad. Because when I call this a hell realm, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm saying it's bad. I'm saying this is a world of suffering where people are being tortured the same way that if uh, we were in the Christian vision of hell, we will be getting tortured, because that would be the intention. Like, if the Christian vision of hell existed and people were sent there, like, that would be hell. It wouldn't necessarily mean that I'm saying it's bad. It would mean that when you look at it objectively, that is hell. You see?
yeah, yeah. Mm. I I see your point now. Like that was a good conclusion. Like you're saying that it's like, imagine you got sent here into a human body, even though it was completely made, perfectly, that human beings would have to suffer. You would still be like, whoa, whoa, like what is this place? Like why am I, because you were sent here and you knew that, you know, life could be another way, and you're
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
um like, there's a lot, like, you have a lot of insights, like, you really have a lot of insights. I really like the fact that you don't like to attach judgment to what happens in your life. Let's say uh maybe something bad happens and you find yourself suffering, and you don't try to, like, attach judgment, right. You'd rather, you'd rather, you choose to just look at us as players in this game. Like, we were put in this game and this is how things actually work, so you wouldn't attach judgment. But I also think that, yeah, we must be as honest as possible to see the reality of everything. So even if we're not attaching that judgment, even if we don't necessarily say this is good or this is bad, or this person is good or this person is bad, but we must still acknowledge that if they are causing suffering, they are causing suffering, even if we're not judging them for causing suffering. So yeah, I do
Mm.
think that, like, I also try not to judge people, but if they do
But
something that causes suffering, yeah, yeah.
I understand you're not judging people, but you're judging their action. Would
Mm,
you say?
mm.
And then you're judging their action based on the resulting suffering that their action causes.
um let me put it this way. Let's say I I decide to take a stone and throw it, and then it falls inside water. If someone asked me what I did, I would say I took a stone and throw it into the water.
Mm,
That is what is true. So there's no judgment. That is just what is true, right? So that's how I look at it, than to judge an action and actually saying that it's bad. It's just that we're using language, right? And sometimes when we're using language, you can say it's something that you can say that something is bad, but I think I'm just calling this realm what it actually is, without actually like necessarily saying that it's bad or it's good, right? It's really up to, I think, whether if a person want to feel like this is good or bad, it's really up to them. But what I'm focusing on is what is more true
mm.
than it being good or bad. If we're causing suffering, we're causing suffering. Whether causing suffering is good or bad, mm, it is what it is. You can choose to look at it anyhow. So whether we are in a hell room or not, or I mean, whether you feel like if hell is good or bad. For example, Christians will say hell is good, hell is bad. It's something that's, I would say hell is bad, right? But because I mean the Christian vision of hell is just fucked up. I mean, you'd agree, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, burning, pit of fire, whatever. I don't even know it too deeply, but yeah.
Yeah, but a person can just say, yeah, it's just hell. It's just what it is, like without any judgment. But that's the only place that I would say is bad, because, like, come on, like we can't. But yeah, what I'm saying is that I'm calling things what they actually are, than to attach judgment to them.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I don't see how you can say it actually is anything though. And then by saying it is something, you are necessarily attaching a judgment to it because you don't know it is that thing, right? And I get what you're saying, that just because someone calls someone suffering, you don't necessarily have to say, suffering was bad. It just is like, if we look at it from, like a high level, if things were constructed in this way, it does definitely seem that people's souls are sent here to feel these human bodies and basically suffer within them. And because that is happening, then this is a hell realm, which is, yeah. I see that, and at the end of the day, like everything you said makes complete utter sense. I'm just thinking I'm coming from a step further and just saying that realistically, let's say you come here from like a forgotten world, but you're being punished, right? But you don't know you're being punished.
Mm,
If you wanted to get out, you'd have to. The first thing you would try and understand is, thinking it is a hell realm is basically keeping you more in the prison than trying to get you out of the prison. Because I don't know how to describe it. It's just I feel like you're just putting a bound over what it is with this whole like sadistic hell realm, definition. And I don't feel that that's necessary. And I feel that that just keeps you within it more. But I do
mm,
see
mm,
that you also recognize that you don't have to have a judgment for suffering or for bad things, but because they are happening, that's why you want to say that this is, like a hell realm type of thing. You recognize that other people can be having a good experience, other people can't be. Some people can have more or less consciousness, but because there is definitely suffering going on, you can make that conclusion. but I still don't think you've convinced me enough, and I don't think it's the intellectually honest answer to put that bound of Hell Realm onto what it is, because I think it's like the best constructed like mind game prison player, whatever you can ever think of. It's the only one also as well. I
Mm.
don't know.
No, no, I get what you're saying. Um, I do think though that if this was a hell room, let's say I was right that this was a hell room, I would say, knowing that it is, knowing that something is wrong with it, meaning that maybe there's this evil being that has trapped us here and that wants us to suffer, or that's getting energy from us. I would say realizing that that is the truth is actually will actually be a positive thing, because you will actually be working on freeing yourself than if you just think, everything is happening for a good reason, or yeah, it is what it is, like, I'm not gonna put a label on it or anything. I think
Yeah.
that can actually keep you trapped than if you
No,
recognize it for what it is.
I completely agree with you. I think billions, 99.9% of people on this planet will not say it's a hell realm. Let's say even out of all the people on this planet, I would say that I'd be very surprised if, like you said, I think you said in one of your videos, if more than 100,000 people said this was a hell realm. And guess what? I'd be surprised if more than 10 people said that this place is necessary, that all this suffering is necessary, that it's not a hell realm. I feel like that is the next step in understanding it. Is not labeling it. Again,
Mm,
like I said, most people will not say that this is a hell realm. And to get to that level of understanding, you know, again, respectfully, I know that you've probably gone through a lot of suffering in your life, a lot of awareness of why this is a hell realm in your life. You don't get to that a willy nilly thought the same way a Christian would say, oh, this is good, or the same way like a naive person would say, this is good. It's because they're not thinking of things, they're not thinking things properly. And you don't call this place a hell realm without thinking things properly. But I think the next step would be to drop that label and to see what happens when you drop that label of hell realm. See what the realm gives you now. Now you stop calling it hellish. See what it wants to give you now. I'm not saying that it's gonna give you immortality, but it might give you $1 million. I don't know. I'm
no,
joking,
it
but
can.
you know what
It
I
can
mean.
actually. No, no, I do think that if you decide not to pay too much attention to the negative things that are happening, you become much healthier as a person, and you kind of like shed the weight, like, and actually be able to focus on the things that are going on in your life more, like see the truth about your own life, right? No, now you start to realize what you might need to do to make your life better and all that. But if this is a hell realm, I don't know if that is best. I think you need to know the truth. And
But if you
let me give you this example. Let's say you are in a prison. You are in a prison, but you don't know that you are in a prison, right? So you just live your life. You just maybe read books, and just you just feel like everything is necessary. Like the guards treating you the way that they treat you is necessary. People stabbing each other, people raping each other, it's all necessary. You and yes, you'll be able to function better than a person who realizes that, this is actually a prison. Like, what is happening? No, 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 man, this is not what I want to experience. So that person has a better chance of escaping than a person who just feels like everything is necessary, right?
no, if you've ever seen this film, Shawshank Redemption, have you seen it?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
The
Yeah.
guy doesn't say, the guy doesn't get to prison. No, let me out, let me out. No, no. He realizes, holy shit, this is necessary, and there's no way I'm getting out of here unless I use my intellect and the fucking miracle. And and that's how he gets some. I think it ends with the Morgan Freeman getting the guy getting out of there. But like, it was necessary, and he realized the way he's gonna stay sane in that prison is basically by using his skills, but basically by being like all the other prisoners. If you go out onto the world and start screaming in the market square, this is a hell realm, this is a hell realm, don't you see it's a hell realm? People are going to look at you and carry on with their lives. The person who's powerful is the person who sees it's a hell realm, steps outside and says, "Fuck, this is a hell realm." Then just goes and makes their coffee, goes and eats their cake, goes and eats their steak, goes and carries on with their life because there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it being a hell realm. So you even calling it a hell realm is more effort that needs to be applied to this place. The same thing with that prisoner that you described, right? If that prisoner was in there and was just the idea is like we want to cope with this life. We're so conscious though. We're not going to get any superpowers from it apart from learning how to cope with life from our level of understanding. And I would say the highest level is to realize it, but then come back down to the lowest bottom feeder, the lowest prisoner, the lowest unconscious person, live like them, but then also realize that there is suffering, things are bad. I was put in this prison for no reason. But just do your time. And, maybe when you get out, you might get a nice job. Maybe when you get out, you might get a nice girlfriend. Who knows what the realm's going to give you for doing your time and not thinking you were special because you were more conscious or thinking because you labeled it something, you were going to achieve something or get out of it. Does that make sense with that analogy?
No, it doesn't. Let me tell you why. So let me give you example of the guy in Shawshank Redemption. Remember, he knew he was in prison, so he didn't need to say it's a prison because he already knew it was. So, and then everyone in the prison knew it was a prison, so he didn't need to tell anyone that it was a prison, right? So in a prison where people don't know it's a prison, it's actually good to help people and actually build a community where you can, figure out a way out together with other people, right? Like raise people awareness so that they will realize that, oh yeah, this is actually a prison. So a lot of people realizing that is actually a good thing. I will agree with you that if you realize that it's a prison doesn't mean that now you must go crazy, you know what I mean? And like, I don't live my life like that. I don't go out screaming, yeah, it's a prison and all that, but I try to have conversations that help us think deeply about it, right? And try to see it more for what it actually is.
Mm. I know that you don't go about, shouting it's a prison. I mean, more within yourself, you might feel like when you finally come to the realization, because it is a level of consciousness, you might feel like, um, oh, I've come to a fact. I've realized the truth that it is a hell realm. And you might, fool yourself the same way that a Christian might think they've realized it's a truth, that this is a joy realm, that this is a positive realm. You know, just drop the Christian or whatever label, just anyone who has a fixed idea about the nature of reality. And the idea of Shawshank Redemption, I think it still stands because he went to prison. He knew that like it was necessary that he went because like the evidence, whatever, made it look like he did it. Like there was no way he was going to get out of that unless proper evidence to the contrary came through or he
Mm.
fucking broke out. I'm not remembering the exact specific details, but I remember during the film, his first instinct wasn't to protest his innocence over and over and over again, but he basically made himself one of the prisoners, even though he was conscious. He was conscious. He was conscious that okay, he became conscious in the sense that he realized the way to be the best, the way to increase his own power in that prison was to be a prisoner. He didn't try and not be a prisoner. When he was talking to the guards, he spoke to them as if he was a prisoner. Maybe he was a bit smarter, maybe he was a bit conscious, but he didn't, he didn't make it a feature of his existence in that prison that there was suffering to his that he didn't make it like it was like he shouldn't be there in a way. He blended in, and we have the feeling that we shouldn't be here suffering, but just blend in, say it's necessary, and like I'm saying, like it's a perspective, it's the way you live your life. At the end of the day, it's not. We can discuss it, but it's like, did this perspective work for me, or didn't this perspective work for me? I'm saying like just have the perspective that of not focusing out on the world out there and trying to label it. and just do that for a week consciously and just see what happens in it, you know. At the end of the week, you might be like, oh no, this idea is not good for me. But at the end of like, it's just like play with these ideas. Like, I've played with the idea that's complete, is complete a hell realm. Most of the times in my day, if something goes bad, I even say to myself, "Oh, this is a fucking hell realm. It was never going to go good anyway." But then I also play with the idea, maybe when I want to meditate, that all these things that happened to my life that were bad were necessary. You know, I don't play with the idea that they were traumatic. Instead, I play with the idea that they were necessary. And because I'm a human being and I have the power to play with different ideas in my head, they bring out different outcomes. And that's kind of what I'm trying to conclude onto. But instead of having a fixed idea, yeah.
Mm-mm. No, no. But you do know that people who were able to set themselves free in prison just because they protested their innocence, like they knew they didn't belong there. They were like, you know what, I need to I need to make people know that I'm actually innocent, right? Like I
Mm.
didn't do the crime.
But did they do it
So
outside of the system?
outside of the system, no, they
Like,
didn't do it outside the system.
so you still have to play, even if you're the most innocent prisoner, you still have to play by the prisoner rules. And maybe the case that you're talking about, it might have taken some people, 20, 25 years before they were released from the prison, even though throughout the whole time they were conscious. It might, the only way you escape by the prison is by playing by its rules. And I think a rule of the prison is that things are necessary. You saying that things are, bad, or things like a hell realm,
But to even
isn't a
protest your
rule.
innocence,
Isn't a rule of the prison.
but
What's that? Sorry.
but to even say that you are innocent in prison when because you are innocent and actually fighting, even if you're fighting through the system, it's you're acknowledging what is true, that hey, I'm in prison. Even if you feel like it was unnecessary for you to be there, it doesn't mean that you can't win just because you are acknowledging that what happened to you wasn't something that was actually supposed to happen because you didn't
Mm,
do the crime. So you have a better chance actually of being free than a person who is passive, right? Than a person who's like,
yeah, but then,
it's all necessary. Mm-mm.
ultimately, do you agree that your freedom will come from that prison that you're in? Because you're already
Mm,
in there. No one's going to listen
elaborate
to you
more on that.
outside that. No one's going to listen to you out in the wider world. Like at first, when you want to like appeal your case or whatever, you have to like tell the prison guards or whatever that, okay, yeah, this is my case, and then they might get a lawyer in that you can start talking to or whatever, or you might call a lawyer from outside. But the prison are going to be the one that are going to say, does this person get to see anyone, to talk with a case, or the system that put you in prison is going to be the ones that are going to decide. So even if you are innocent and
Mm-mm.
you protested your innocence, you can't escape outside whatever the prison wants to give you to escape. There are many people who are innocent, protest they're innocent, and they don't get out because the system, for whatever reason, ensured that they weren't going to get out, even though they were innocent and they protested their innocence. So like in that same way, if you're trying to get out of this prison, you have to
Mm.
understand the rules of the prison correctly. And to be honest, that's what we've been discussing for this last hour. What are the rules of this prison? I feel like you're trying to say a rule of the prison is that it's sadistic or it's cruel. I'm saying a rule of the prison is that things happen necessarily. And both of us, because we're both trying to like understand it, we're both trying to seek, you know, an answer that will, maybe alleviate our suffering or alleviate or improve our understanding of the prison. And, what we're actually having a discussion of is, what's the best way to understand, the fucking prison that we're in. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, because I can just keep on saying that things are
No,
necessarily bad, and you can
no,
say that,
I get your
you
point of
know,
view. Like, yeah, I get your point of view. Yeah, the difference is, yeah, how you like, what is the best way to cope, or to cope while trying to set yourself free? Is it to feel more like this is a hell realm and allow that to torture you? Will feeling like that actually set you free somehow in the end? Or should you just be like, find the best way to cope while still knowing that, hey, there is a lot of fucked up things that are happening in the world? And yeah, but but I do think that if you're strong enough, like if a person feels like they're strong enough to handle, you know everything that they like, to handle all the truth that they can see in this realm, they should.
Mm,
I think that's gonna expand their awareness
okay.
more, like that's gonna accelerate their growth
Let me
than if they go back
this
and yeah,
example.
yeah.
Let's say someone does something to you personally, right? Let's
Mm,
say they take a job that you wanted, you know, and
mm,
it's something that you really wanted or whatever. And you know that
mm,
with that person getting that job, they're gonna be able to get the house they want. They might be able to send their kids to the school that they want. So that job's gonna make sure that they have like a better life, right?
mm,
You know, within you, if you're an honest person, you're gonna notice, feelings of jealousy, feelings that you're
mm,
not good enough. You might be a bit angry towards this person, blah blah blah. And then
mm,
for me, where this trying to understand the prison comes into it is, then I
mm,
would say I've been made in a way that means that if someone else has more power than me, and they're my peer, I know them, I'm going to feel weaker. That's why I'm feeling this jealousy, this anger, this whatever. And then
mm,
you actually become something that's not jealous, angry, or whatever, but you become something that is understanding your nature. And you being jealous, angry, or whatever is natural. It's how you're intended to make, you're intended to be, right? And then
mm,
someone might be like, oh, I'm feeling these feelings of anger, jealousy, whatever, because this realm's a sadistic hell realm, blah, blah, blah. But the other person has said, I'm feeling these feelings because it's my nature, it's natural, this is how it's meant to be. That other
mm.
person, I feel, could get stuck in those feelings of, I'm not saying I don't get stuck in feelings or whatever. I'm saying there's more freedom in playing with that idea of understanding understanding how it's necessary that you feel this way, or if it's necessary that things are this way, rather than using your consciousness or your understanding to put a label onto things. And like, I do get the sense that you don't like necessarily like live your life in that way or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's the point
No,
I'm trying.
no, you're right. You're 1,000% right. No, yeah, actually, I don't live my life in that way at all. I remember when someone took my girl, like the girl that, like, I love the most, and yeah. So he had a lot of money. He had a big car. Like, you could see the guy is doing well. The last text that I sent her was that, you've taught me that I still need to, like, a lot to work on. I cannot blame you for choosing someone who's doing better than me. Like, you just gave me a reality check. So yeah, it did hurt me because I didn't want to lose you and all that, but it is what it is, right? Because I understand that. I understand the rules. It's so me saying that this is a hell realm doesn't mean that I don't understand the rules. What makes me call this a hell realm is that, because these rules exist in a world that no one consented to be in, we have to also acknowledge that there is a lot of suffering that is going on. The same way that if you were put in hell, because you will be put in hell without your consent,
But
and you get tortured in that hell, it's still suffering. It's still some kind of a prison for you, right? Yeah, yeah.
I feel
Thanks for the super things, get easy. Yeah,
I
I'm a
feel the
go
issue is like,
waiting. Yeah, yeah.
you think that you deserve consent. You think you deserve to be asked. You think you deserve all these things just because in this reality you're suffering. And then it comes back down to the point of, there are some people who don't think they need to ask the universe, oh, why wasn't I asked if I want life, or why wasn't X, Y, and Z happen to me, because they'll go through the whole of life not needing to ask those questions. And then again, you then make the point that those people are like less conscious,
No,
Therefore,
no,
because I'm more
those
conscious, I
ones I wouldn't say they're less conscious. They in the situation that they're describing, I wouldn't say they're less conscious.
so you wouldn't say that people who have no reason to question, life because it hasn't necessarily been bad to them are less conscious.
No, people who wouldn't ask the universe why certain things happen to them without their consent and who keep on complaining that, yeah, this happened to me without my consent, this happened to me without my consent. I wouldn't necessarily say they are less conscious, right? It's just how they choose to cope with life. They don't want to ask those kind of questions because it doesn't necessarily get them anywhere. So I wouldn't say that means they're less conscious.
Mm,
I also don't live my life that way. I only talk about consent when it comes to things that I think people must understand. Like if you like creating a new life, like we must also understand that we're creating people that they didn't consent to being created. So
mm,
we must ask ourselves if that is actually uh, fair for these people that are being created to come and play a game that they didn't say they wanted to play.
mm. You see, I see that point, and then I see the reality of it is that every day, hundreds and thousands of people are being brought in to, play this game. So, like,
Hmm.
what's my thought that because we're not asking these people, do you want to play this game? Like, what does it really matter? Because the reality of it is people aren't asked. And if I want to say that's a bad thing, that's my own perspective. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you can't make any you can't know anything. Like, wisdom is the ignorance or whatever. Unknowing is the beginning of wisdom. You can't know anything. So yeah, I mean, even with that, like, again, like, even with uh baby example, what does it matter that they weren't asked their consent? I can say within myself that's a bad thing, and I don't want to bring a baby in here because like, I think that it would be nice if they were asked before they were born, if that was ever possible. Yeah, I can play that little game in my head, but the reality of the world is that that's not the way it works. People are brought here without their consent because it's necessary for the human species to keep on going on. And what the species wants is unknown to the human individual, and it's irrelevant to the human individual. Like the species and the intelligence of whatever level of existence we're operating on, controlling, wherever we're going, is much more powerful, much more ancient, much more old than we'll ever understand. And that's why, even though we can play these games of saying, oh, I didn't ask this baby if she wants consent, it's only always going to be a minority interest game, a minority interest question, because the reality is that, babies are being born every day. And then for all those people that are having kids, they'll say, "Oh, this is a great realm. This is a joy realm." So, how strong is your opinion really? I'd say the stronger opinion for yourself as an individual again is that things are necessary. So, what is the disagreement really? Let's just try and see if we can get back to it again.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I think it does help to talk about things that we feel are unfair that people might not realize at the time. Because I've had conversations with people who never look at things from my perspective. So I think it actually does matter to tell people that, hey, remember when you create a new person, you're creating something that didn't consent to being brought here. So it also helps the people who already have kids to realize that, you know their kids didn't ask for this, so they don't have to treat them as if they asked for this. They have to treat them as if they're the ones who actually wanted kids.
Mm. But just, I feel that that point is very important. Like, if I was to have kids, that'll be at the forefront of my mind. But do you feel like 99% of parents even want to hear that they have to consider their kids in that way? That level of knowledge and understanding is impossible for most people because that's just the way things are. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but I also think it has to do with how we have been programmed. Like it has to do with, you remember what you were saying about power. It has to do with the people who condition us to think the way that we do. If we're conditioned to think differently, then we will think differently. So it's good to have this conversation than to let it die and be like, okay, 99% of the people wouldn't understand what I'm saying. Maybe there will be a time when this kind of conversation makes more sense. So if we let it die and say, let's not talk about it, let's not talk about it, you might find that at the time that it actually makes the most sense, no one is being impacted because we decided to give up.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I see your point in terms of keeping it alive. It's just that I feel like that question will never be a reality because the human species just wants to keep on going on, you know. So
Mm.
we,
Yeah, but it does
but
help. It
we can,
does help.
yeah, we you can definitely raise a child more intelligently by doing that. But I mean, then you're playing a whole different game. Who's going to be on? I don't know, like that's a burden. That's another weight onto your responsibility. It's much easier to raise a child unconsciously than consciously, you know. So then you ask yourself, do I even want to do that? And then you go to a parent who's just had a child and then say, did you even consider that you didn't even ask this guy? Do you even consider all the suffering? Do you even consider X, Y, and Z? And then all the other things that come along with like raising a child. Is it ever even going to be an important question to the human species? Should it always be there? Yeah, okay. But at the end of the day, like, what's the utility of it apart from within yourself and maybe one or two people that might take on the idea in your inner circle? I feel it's always coming back down to like the utility for yourself. And yeah, again, I just don't feel calling it a hell realm or sadistic or whatever is useful for yourself. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think some people actually thrive from being as intellectually honest as possible, or wrestling with the truth, no matter what it is. I think they actually cope that way. Like if they
They,
feel like something is true,
they
whether it
think
makes them feel bad or not, but that them wrestling with it, them trying to understand the truth, does actually help them thrive. Yeah.
I think they are because I think they think they are right, but there's no truth. Like there is no truth. Like you think like a truth. You think a truth of suffering is that it's bad. Okay, it might be bad for the person suffering, but there are people that we're going to get back into this subjective thing, and someone who enjoys seeking the truth and whatever, blah blah blah. I feel the end of that road is realizing that there is no truth, there is no objective value judgments that one can make. I feel like that's the end of the road, and before all that, you're kind of just, playing with your brain, playing with different ideas in your head, seeing what's fun. And me, as someone who's also like intellectually more inclined, is something that I do as well. And I feel the end of the journey is dropping all that, dropping thinking, the truth. But even that word should be destroyed from from everywhere it's printed. Truth. There's no such thing as truth. And even if it does exist, it doesn't exist for us human beings because I agree and you agree. Like this isn't, a high level of existence. We're still animals. All I'm trying to like fundamentally say is that we shouldn't try and label things and we shouldn't try and deny our animal nature. And our animal nature will sometimes cause us to do good things, but a lot of the times it'll cause us to do things that cause suffering. But we need to understand that our animal nature is necessary, not try and label it. And I don't even like what else like what's the next like I don't know. That's my like fundamental point. And if you could help me understand why where labeling it gets you, then maybe I could change my mind. But I feel like I haven't had that.
Okay. You said that truth doesn't exist, but um, what you must understand is that if that is true, that will be the truth. So that will automatically mean that truth exists. The truth will be that there is no truth. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're in our little confused human minds that we want to think. that our logic is true. Yeah, you can play the logic game that, if there's no truth, then that's true. So therefore, truth exists. Yes, it's fun, but we both know that we're just playing the language game.
It's not even a language game. It will actually mean that um, maybe everything is actually an illusion, and that will be the truth, which means that there's no actual truth. Everything is an illusion, and you know what I mean? So that will be the truth. So it's not even a language game. Like truth will be that. It will mean that it's an illusion. Because what do you actually mean that there's no truth? Right? Let me see what you actually mean.
I mean, there are truths for humans, right? But those truths can only be known through our human faculties, right? They're not known through any other aspect. So, like, for example, physicists, they think they're finding out truth when they find a smaller particle. They're not really
Mm.
finding out anything, but just investigating how the human mind represents things to the human mind. And the truth of not, again, playing the logic game with the word truth. It's like God. It's like that silly word God. What does it really mean? The truth of that is that all the human being can know is a thing that the human mind produces for the human being to know. And that means that there really isn't any truth.
Wouldn't that mean that human beings are just not capable of understanding truth? But it wouldn't mean that there is no truth. It would just mean that at
That would
our
basically mean the
level.
same thing. I think that would mean this in terms of in relation to human beings not being able to understand truth and there being no truth means the same thing in terms of our level of existence on this planet.
Mm. But if truth did exist in higher realms, but it didn't exist in this realm, like if we weren't wired in a way that would make us see truth, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be impossible for us to get closer to what is actually true, right?
Mm, I see your point, but then that then presupposes you know what truth is in this realm. Like, like how can you even talk about truth in higher realm when there's no truth that exists for us or for anything in this realm? Like we don't know. There might be truth in higher realms, but you can't say there's truth in this realm because I don't think you can say there's truth in. I mean, I don't think you can say there's truth in those higher realms because you don't even know if there's truth in your realm. So don't even bother about the higher realms yet. Focus on this realm, and then my point is to focus on within yourself, within this realm, and then see
No,
what you
I
can get
agree.
out of that. So, like, yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying that I don't think you live your life in that way of thinking, oh, if I can go to these higher realms with truth, with these higher beings, everything will be okay. I don't think you think like that whatsoever. I feel like it's just a mind game that we'll play. Truth, higher realms, blah blah blah. I think the
Yeah.
important thing is just I don't. I feel like I just don't know. I think the important thing is just not to have a fixed idea in trying to label what's out in front of us. And I feel this is a lifetime of work, not just something you can have in a 2 hour conversation. It's a lifetime of perspective, of changing perspective and seeing things. So yeah.
I think if you are not being indoctrinated, you are the one who's trying to investigate reality for yourself. There's there's intelligence in trying to label things. Because look at it this way, right? As a human, if you got kidnapped and put in an island and you don't know anything in that island, and you figure out how things work in the island, like you can figure out how to get food, you figure out how to build a shelter, it doesn't mean that now you stop seeking for answers. You stop trying to figure out what the truth is about the place that you are in, and you say, yeah, that's actually the best way to live, is to just live my life without trying to figure out what this is or putting labels to things. Actually, it will be like being in a maze, like you're trying to work your way out, but by also learning what might actually be true. What I would say is that it is better to not be stuck or not to be too certain, right? When you think you've found the truth, right?
I feel like if you are working through this maze, there's nothing wrong with prints a sign saying dead end or nothing here or doesn't go anywhere, you know. And if I feel like myself, I've put a dead end sign on the on the bridge that says label the realm or try and understand or define the realm. I understand what you're saying, but if you're on this island, right, and
Mm-mm.
let's say you were doing it, you're doing, you know, like, oh, you made a little statue to the fish god because fishes came and it was nice, and you know, like you planted your plants there and there was a nice harvest, and you know, every day you pray to the fish god and some fish would come and things were all right. But then, you know, on one night, you know, thunder came and some, like, imagine an actual alien came down and visited your little island, you know, and said,
Mm-mm.
okay, now you have to start, making monuments to me, blah, 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 blah. Your definitions, your understanding will change because your environment, your nature has changed. And you have to, like, it has to work in the way I feel like, even though your environment, even though the world or the time period you could find yourself in will change, there has to be a constant. And that constant is things are necessary. And I feel with that one piece of information, you can understand anything in this world. And after that, anytime anything happens outside, you can just say, shrug your shoulders and say, it was necessary. And then focus on the real work within yourself. Like, you trying to categorize, or I feel like it's a trap to think you're being intelligent by giving things definitions and categories and things like that. I think the
Mm.
highest forms of philosophy, the highest forms of thought, you know, to which even science, in my opinion, science is behind philosophy, is basically saying you don't know anything. And I feel like
Mm.
that's what necessity does. You say things happen because they happen. I don't know why they happen. And I'm not going to be presumptuous and pretend that I know why they happen because because the same prison that I'm in also let me make judgments. Therefore, I think my judgments on things are going to be true. Your judgments are part of your prison nature. So,
Mm. Yeah, yeah. There's a difference between asking yourself what makes sense in that situation to believe. Like, for example, let's say an alien came and that alien started destroying, you know, like your farm. Let's say you build a farm and alien came and started destroying the farm. Whenever you build a farm, an alien came and started to destroy the farm. The truth will be that you don't know why the alien is destroying the farm, but it will be logical to think, huh, this alien is actually destroying this farm because it doesn't want me to, plant food or to grow food, right? So it's not in agreement with what I want, and I'm in this place that I don't understand, and this alien is not giving me an explanation of what is actually going on. It's not telling me anything. It's just destroying this farm. I'm trying to, grow food here, and it keeps on destroying it. So based on what is happening, and also based on how it's making me feel, I don't think this is good, but I don't know why it's happening. So you are acknowledging that you don't know why it's actually happening, but that the whole situation, uh, based on everything, like if you are going to be as intellectually honest as possible in that situation,
yeah,
you can say no, that's not what I prefer. Like, this is
mm,
being held for me. Yeah.
yeah, intellectually honest, right? It's not a word the universe knows. The universe doesn't know truth or intellectually honest. The universe just is. It just exists necessarily, right? And the thing is, I feel like those words, like intellectually honest or truth or God or whatever, it makes you feel like you know what you're talking about. But I don't think being intellectually honest is saying that it's a hell realm because you're suffering, because I have personal suffering. That's your personal suffering. You go out into the world, you tell people about your personal suffering, they say, go fuck yourself. You know, go out to the universe, tell them about your personal suffering. They'll say, go fuck yourself. You know, it's only you putting it out there, onto putting that label out there. You know, you even said yourself, imagine the trauma you've had in your life. You just say, oh, imagine that person didn't even exist. I was even playing with that idea and I was even laughing. Like, imagine, because that person's not here in front of me now. Imagine, they don't even exist. They're just someone I was given power to. I was playing with those ideas because I wasn't too busy in concerning myself with this being a bad place. In playing with those ideas, like I had a laugh to myself, I smiled to myself. Does it mean this place is totally bad? I have my happy I have laugh moments. Life is kind of funny if you let yourself laugh at the whole process. There are things here that you can, take enjoyment from in a certain type of way. But I feel you can't even get there if you say that it's a hell realm. And I feel like you feel like you're limiting yourself by
But I've
not.
already done that though.
No, I'm saying what you're saying is that you feel that you're limiting yourself
Oh,
from by not calling it a hell realm. But how
yeah,
do you think I've been in this conversation? Do you feel like I'm not listening to you, or do you feel like I'm arguing my points, or what? Because I think that's
no,
more
no.
important.
I like how you argue your points. I like how you. That's the reason why I wanted us to do this. To be honest, like I like this conversation, and I think it's gonna help people. Because the thing is, you have to look at every perspective. Like there's always different ways to look at things, right? So when we debate, we actually learn a lot from debating. There's definitely something that I'm taking from you. There's definitely something that the people who are watching are also taking from you, right? Trying to find balance, right? So that yeah, we find we become better in a way.
Mm.
So yeah, I feel you're responding to what I'm saying, and yeah, I think it was dope conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, it's a deep topic because at
Mm,
the end of the day, like imagine there's a prison of 9 billion people. I mean 8 billion people, but then there's a little corner in that prison, which I feel like
mm,
we're in, trying to understand it. We're gonna have the most deep conversations, the most thought provoking ideas and debates, and like you said, that's the whole point of where it is. You know, and like I say, like I just play with ideas. you know
mm,
I almost like imagination. I say, let me just run with this for like a day, let me contemplate this for an hour. I was contemplating that idea, that imagine all those people were just dream elements or whatever. I got something out of contemplating that idea, and that something was my something. It wasn't something I can necessarily you know talk about. But yeah, that's why it's good to debate from my perspective anyway.
yeah, but I would like to hear your idea on that, like the idea of this being like your own dream. Like what do you think? What do you think that's possible without like really you know believing in something, right? Like without believing anything to be true. But do you think that's actually possible, that you could actually be in a dream right now?
I think definitely, and you have to realize it during your waking life. And there are many ways you can realize that. And one way is called self remembering. And it's basically just to say during the day, just to remember and say, okay, I exist. I exist on this planet. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Kind of take a picture of your body and basically try and make it like a habit of self remembering. And what you will soon find out is that you don't actually remember yourself. You don't remember that you exist. That thought isn't a main thought in your head throughout most of the day. And that will also tell you that most of the day you're just on autopilot, you know. And then another
Mm,
way to realize it is just sleep anyway. If you get good deep sleep for at least 8 hours, you're gone somewhere else. You then wake up and suddenly you're this person again, you know. And
mm,
that's why it's important that that period between waking up, that early waking up period is when you should be like reminding yourself that holy shit, I just came from literally the void, you know. And
mm,
at the end of the day, the void that you came from wasn't empty because if you had a good sleep, you might have had some dreams there, and now you're back in this dream, and and like you have to play with the idea that it is a dream, and then you're not going to realize it's a dream, in my opinion, but then you'll see how it doesn't differ so much from the dreams that you have when you go to sleep.
No, that's yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Uh, yeah, but whatever it is, I hope we do get to find out at some point. I hope we do get to find out at some point, because um, even though, like you were saying, when we're on Discord, that you like gaining knowledge, like you now enjoy the process. So even though I do enjoy the process as well, like I do enjoy gaining knowledge and becoming more and more aware, or like knowing a lot of things, but I do think that at some point I need to fully understand what this is. I need to look back and be like, oh, that's what that was. The same way that you wake up from a dream and be like, oh yeah, it
Okay.
was just a dream,
So,
because you
so
know for
what's more
sure.
important, what this is or what you are?
You're asking why it's so important.
No, no, I'm saying what is more important, what this
Oh,
is or what you
what?
are?
um I would say what I am is more important than what this is. I think, once you know what you are, you kind of like regain your power. It's like waking up, because to know what you are, you basically wake up. So I would say that's more important than knowing, yeah, knowing what this is.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
if you were in a dream, um I'd say it's more important to know. Let's just say you are a human, and you were dreaming that you are a cat. I would say knowing that you're a human is more important than knowing that you are in a dream, right?
Yeah.
It's just that automatically, if you know that you're a human, I think you'd also know that it's a dream. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I see that point. And yeah, I think if you see that that's more important, then you can probably play with the idea that calling it a hell realm or even labeling it isn't really as important to understanding it as maybe you thought before. But yeah, who knows? Yeah, exactly. Might be bored
Well,
of the heavenly realm.
there's this comment from Princess Kane. You are here because you got bored of the heavenly realm. What do you say to that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that just it could be true, but then it's assuming that there's a nice heavenly realm that I'm gonna go back to. Maybe I got bored of the other devil realm. I wanted to go to another hell realm. Maybe that's why I'm here. Who knows?
Yeah, I wrestle with that idea too. What if God got bored? Like that's I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because yeah, if you're God and you can have any experience that you want, obviously you'd have all the dopest experiences that you can have. But maybe you'll get to a point where you're like, you know what, I want to be in a room where I understand nothing, and yeah, where I'll be confused and try to figure out what the truth is, myself. Like the same way that we play games, like when you play a video game, you put like you find yourself having a challenge, and then you gotta like figure out how to get through that challenge. So you might not necessarily have known what you're getting yourself into, and then you just found yourself here, and yeah, you find yourself dealing with this.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is great talking to you, bro. It was great talking to you. um if there are people who still haven't joined the Discord, trust me, join the Discord. Let's have fun. That's where we have conversations. That's where I met Tino, and yeah, we had a conversation. I think the last time when we were having a conversation, there were like 10 people, right? And we were debating like crazy. Like it was fun.
mm,
So that's where things are happening. I'll also record some of the conversations that we have on Discord, and yeah, yeah, so that people can see what really goes on there. Like, but yeah, it's fun. It was fun.
yeah. No, it's great. I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, at the end of the day, like with anyone, not many things can take people's attention for 2 hours. and I'll definitely engage throughout this whole thing, thinking, testing my perspective. And at the end of the day, I think we just, like in the first Discord call, we just agree to disagree. But I think we've understood where both of us are coming from more. And I think we're both trying to get to the same thing, just different avenues. And we can only help each other by understanding what tools each other each other person is using to get to where they want to go. That's it.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, yeah, and debates will be fun in my opinion because like people sometimes they become angry, and I think when when we become angry, we kind of like put a wall between us and the people that we're debating with. So they won't be a room for growth. There won't be a room for understanding. So it shouldn't be about uh, like fighting to be right if what you're interested in is understanding what is more true. I think the most effective way is to be patient, is to listen, and not to listen to disagree, but also to understand, so that you evolve. If that's what you're interested in, if evolution is not what you're interested in, if it's just winning debates, then yeah, you can get angry, not give a people that you're debating with a chance to speak and all that. But I like the fact that we both never got angry, we haven't insulted each other. We gave each other time to speak, right? Like I feel like you listened to me, allowed me to say whatever I wanted to say, and I also listened to you, and yeah. So I think that was dope. I think this was a dope debate because this is also a sensitive topic. You know what I mean? So it's not easy to you know have this kind of conversation without you feeling emotions and all that. So I think this was a very this was a very nice debate, and yeah, we both were we both did it well, like you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it just stems from both of us coming from like an authentic place and what we're discussing. You know, we don't
Mm,
necessarily have to talk about our exact experiences, but I think, like you said, like it's truth is truth no matter what. It doesn't matter. So when someone's talking about these ideas, naturally the conversation, the people who've considered them, they're going to be just naturally just wanting to listen and wanting to understand because they know it's not about being right, it's about understanding. At the end of the day, it's about basically baking it into your subconscious. you know but yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, that's all from me, man. So
I know that's dope, Tino. If I don't think you have introduced yourself, so if you like to, you can. Yeah, you
yeah,
can
I'll
go
put
in.
something in the chat now. I'll just put my I'll just say hi, and you guys, if you want to subscribe to me, I'm always in the Discord chat. I'm usually active on Discord if anyone ever wants to have a conversation in the philosophy channel, things like that. Just yeah, literally, like thing is with me, I just don't have any fixed behavior. I mean, fixed ideas. So like, yeah, I really will listen to anyone and try and understand their perspective. Maybe down the line I'll upload some stuff. So if you guys want to like drop a subscribe, maybe if I get like 20 subscribers, I'll put something up or something like that. Yeah. Cheers.
All right, no, that would be dope, man. That would be dope. Yeah, I was just gonna take it to 2 hours. It was yeah, it was dope. There's a reason why it took this long. I think yeah, there were so many things that we needed to touch on. But yo,
Mm.
thank you guys for joining the live. You can watch if you've joined in late. You can watch it from the beginning. It's really an interesting debate. So yeah, I'll end the live in like 30 seconds. But let me see if there's a comment that I can respond to. Big fan of the podcast. No, thanks, Princess Ken. Like I like the name Princess Ken. I get angry because we all should have abundance, but that's not of this place. How many have to perish because they don't have a piece of paper with a crap on it to stay in existence? Yeah, man, that's what sucks, I guess. But yo, yeah, thanks, Tino. Yeah, I'm gonna end the live now, man.
No problem.
So
No problem.
if you have something to say, like as we close, you can say, and then yeah, we end the live.
No, nothing to say. Just looking forward to the next one.
All right, no, dope. Thank you so much.